started. Thank you all for coming to another Moving to Mexico Monday meeting on Zoom. I appreciate your patience. We had to cancel last week because I wasn't feeling well, but I'm feeling much better now. I'm well enough to have a paloma, right or wrong. Everybody says tequila cures everything. That's what all the Mexicans say. So that's my excuse. But thank you so much for joining us. I want to introduce ourselves because these videos are going up on our YouTube channel and not everybody has been involved. So it's Kim and Gabrielle in Puerto Morelos, Mexico. We are with Runaway Realty here in Puerto Morelos, which is best little beach town in Mexico, I think, just south of Cancun. So our program is Moving to Mexico Monday, but really, as you know, most of our content is geared towards moving to Puerto Morelos and specifically. And I think when you're looking at a place to move in Mexico, it's best not to think of it as, oh, I'm just going to move to Mexico. I mean, every area has a different personality, in particular in the Riviera Maya, which is where we are. Every little town on this coast really has its own personality. So I encourage people to look at all of them. Of course, I love Puerto Morelos and I don't know why anyone would go anywhere else, but it's not for everybody, right? So, so anyway, tonight we're talking about things to consider before you go shopping for properties in Puerto Morelos specifically. We will do some general stuff that relates to all over Mexico, but really tonight we're talking about Puerto Morelos. Just for housekeeping, I think most of you have your microphones muted. Yep. So when you enter the meeting, you're automatically on mute, and then I'm going to ask you to mute during the chat. Otherwise, the camera, I don't know how to explain it. The camera view shifts every time someone makes a noise, so it can be very weird watching the video playback. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat box, and I will stop every few minutes and check that. And then, of course, we can have a discussion later. There's not too many of us tonight, and actually, we really prefer that because we can talk about what you want to talk about. I'm also going to be tonight referring to our Puerto Morelos Buyer Brainstorming Guide. If you haven't gotten a copy of this resource, please download it. We'll put the link on Facebook and actually under the video on YouTube. We put this together specifically to go over the information we're going to go tonight, but it's a really good, handy resource to keep when you're in the very first stages of starting to think about moving, particularly to Puerto Morelos. I'm going to use it as a guide tonight because, of course, my outline, what is it called? Windows 10 decided to reboot in the middle of my outline and I lost everything. So this is my outline tonight. And I guess, you know, where I want to start is when people, I've been selling real estate here for 9 years, and it's very common that people show up in our office and they believe that they only want one thing, and that one thing is to be in the seaside village, on the beach, or as close as possible to the beach. They don't want to be anywhere that requires them to have a car. They don't want to be walking distance to everything, and that's all they want. They don't want to talk about anything else. So, and honestly, for many years, that's really all we had to offer people, because that was really where, and particularly Americans and Canadians wanted to be. And so there wasn't much of a market anywhere else in Puerto Morelos for homes, unless you were willing to look along the beach, north and south, where there were still some great opportunities, but then you probably need to have a car. So for a lot of years, we only were focusing right in this seaside village area, which if you're familiar with our town, you know, that's not very big. That's like 3 blocks deep and about 10 blocks long. So there weren't a lot of opportunities. And of course, they have always been kind of expensive, and they've only gotten more expensive. So right now, unless you have $700,000 for a single family home, you're probably not gonna be able to buy a home in the seaside village. So it's gotten a little bit wild in that sense. But we're lucky because some other areas have opened up and have become very attractive to foreign buyers. That includes Pescadores, which is between Puerto Morelos and the highway. On the left, where you, as you're going back towards the highway, you see the gas station, but if you look left, there's like a baseball field, and back there's another neighborhood, which is very cool. Adjacent to that is a gated community called Punta Arena, which was kind of the first gated community that existed here and has become super popular. So that's an area that's opened up, much less expensive than the Seaside Village. Then there's some other gated communities along the highway north, and then there's the Colonia across the highway, which when I first came, you know, people, expats in particular, there was like one couple that lived in the Colonia that we all knew. We were like, oh, they're so brave. Like, they're living out there in the Mexicans, and they had a wonderful life. And I think people became more willing to look in other places and realize the Colonia is amazing. There's great restaurants there. It's easy to get around. That's where all of the life stuff happens. That's where the hardware stores are, the, you know, the seamstress, the key maker, all that, you know, supermarket, all of that is over there. And it's a very quick, it doesn't take long to get to the beach from there. So you can still live this amazing life for way less money if you're willing to go over to the Colonia as well, and you'll get property for much less money. So I guess now, you know, when people are starting to think about buying here, I really want to encourage you to think about more than just the Seaside Village, because you might be disappointed and priced out, or it may just not be what you're really, the life that you were really imagining. So I guess the first thing that kind of will guide your search, it's funny because you're like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg, what you really want or how much you can afford. So we kind of always want to start with making sure that you understand the costs. So when you buy property here as a foreigner, I'm not going to go through all the legalities. Let's just take it for granted. We all agree you can buy property, you can own property on the beach or otherwise. It's a safe, legal investment. But it is expensive. And it's all cash. So when you buy property here, there's no banks in the US, Canada, Mexico offering mortgage loans on real estate here using the real estate as a collateral. And that is because under Mexican real estate law, once you grant possession to a buyer or anyone, getting the property back is very difficult and time consuming, particularly if it's a buyer, if they have a contract to purchase the property. So no banks have been willing to extend credit, knowing that they have they're going to have a very hard time recovering that asset if you default on your loan. That's the same reason that sellers don't want to do financing with you, because they'll have the same problem. If they sell, you know, you put 30% down or something, even 50% down, they let you have possession and give you a few years to pay it off. If you default on the loan, they can't get the property back quickly. It's going to be a drawn out legal mess, expensive, time consuming. So for right now, there are very few options to finance properties. Sometimes developers, if you're, especially in pre-construction, if you want to buy like a condo in pre-construction, you can buy it that way and they'll give you some time to purchase it, maybe a year or two, depending on how long their build takes. But you have to have it paid for by the time you take possession, because they have the same problem. So that's not really, it's not good as a mortgage. There are some banks offering, I think there's only one offering US citizens. I haven't heard about Canadian citizens, kind of a short-term bridge loan to buy property here. They ask for a pretty large down payment and the interest rate's high and it's just short-term loan. So you can think of it more like a bridge loan than a mortgage loan. So there are some companies doing that. I'll drop that in the comments below. I think, I can't remember the name of it. I've never had a client take advantage of it because once they really look into it, the interest rates are so crazy that it doesn't make sense. It's easier to do what many people are doing, which is borrow against another asset at home, like refinancing a home or withdrawing investment funds or something like that. So so far, there doesn't seem to be a manageable way to get a mortgage on a property here that's not going to cost some outrageous amount. Now, Mexican citizens can qualify for mortgages here because they have credit in Mexico. But even then, the interest rates are pretty prohibitive, and it's not an attractive thing for people to do. So until that can be brought down a little bit and or the law changes and it's easier to repossess property, then I don't think we're going to see much change in that. Just real quickly, this isn't really our topic, but the upside of that is we have a super stable market. You know, it's expensive to get into, but we aren't as affected by outside factors as a market controlled by mortgage loans is. So there's a good side to that, but it's hard to get in. The other thing to know, besides the fact that you're going to pay cash, is that buyers pay for the closing costs here. People are often surprised at that. And I think it's different in the US and Canada, or sometimes you can negotiate it, but here it's exclusively really buyers pay the closing costs. And the thinking is it's because you want to transfer the title, so you're going to pay to transfer the title. The closing costs are, I think, pretty steep here. They range from around 6% of the purchase price all the way up into like 12, 13% of the purchase price, depending on the price of your property. When I'm saying closing costs, I'm including everything that a buyer would pay for it. So that includes the cost of your own attorney to represent your interests, the cost of the notario, who's the semi-governmental official tasked with transferring real property. And he or she is a lawyer who has a special designation, but they're not your lawyer. So they don't have any any obligation to protect you. And in fact, are just, I don't even know how to describe it. So they have the responsibility to make sure the title's clear and to do what you tell them to do, but they are not going to advise you, hey, I don't think you should do it this way, or, you know, blah, blah, blah. So you need your own attorney for that. And unless you read and speak Spanish very well, you're going to want an attorney to explain to you what you're signing. So I think you should always have your own attorney. You're going to pay the notario. You're going to pay the purchase acquisition taxes, which are 3.3% in Puerto Morelos. So that's a big chunk. You're going to pay the cost to either start or transfer the asset trust, the fideicomiso, and you'll pay the first year annual fee of the fideicomiso, which is around $500. You're going to pay to open an escrow account. If you're smart, you would always use escrow. It's a topic of another night, but it really protects the buyers and the sellers and keeps the funds in a trust account until the day of closing. And the seller pays, so I think that's everything the buyer pays. The seller pays their capital gains taxes, and they pay the real estate commission. So at the $300,000 price point, those costs are around 8 to 9% of the purchase price. At the $500,000 price point, they're more like 6 to 7, and as you know, the more expensive you go, they kind of drop out because some of them are pegged to the price and some of them are just flat fees. When we get to the lower price points, they're a bigger chunk because some of them are just flat fees. So at the under 100,000, you're paying at least 10%, and as you go down to, like, we just sold a lot for 57,000, and I think her costs were like 14%. So it's not cheap, but you need to know that before you go shopping for property. So that's something to keep in mind upfront. And the reason I think, you know, you always need to have that in mind before you get all excited and get stars in your eyes is you don't want to go out and start looking at a bunch of stuff you can't afford, because then what you can't afford you might not like. You know, it's hard to compare that stuff. So it's better to have a realistic idea of what you can afford and then see what are really your options. I'll let someone else in here. Any questions about that part, about understanding the costs? No? Okay. Hi, Generosa?
Yes. Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Hi. Yeah, I was in another caller, and then so we're running late, so I didn't want to interrupt what you guys are doing.
Okay, no worries. No worries. Just if you could mute your microphone while we go on, perfect. So while in terms of costs, while getting into a property here, it can be expensive and the closing costs are steep, the ongoing costs are much more manageable for many people, and indeed usually a lot more expensive, a lot less expensive than what you pay in the US and Canada. Just quickly, those are going to, your ongoing costs are going to be your annual fideicomiso trust fee, which is around $500, your annual property taxes, which are crazy low in Puerto Morelos. To calculate, to approximate those, you would take 0.0028 times the purchase price. And that would be your amount of taxes that you would pay for the year. And if you pay in December, you get 15% off. So the property taxes are usually a very nice surprise to people who are used to paying thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on property taxes per year. If you're in a condo, you're going to pay an association fee. Everyone, of course, is going to pay their own electricity. You'll have a water payment unless you're in a condo association where they've wrapped that water payment into the association fee. And, you know, phone, TV, internet, you're going to pay, and you'll also have property insurance. And if you're not going to be here all the time, you're probably going to pay someone to manage your property. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're going to do rentals, you're probably going to pay someone to manage that as well and pay a commission on that rental income to have them handle your rentals and also book your rentals. So those are all things to keep in mind. I think when you're thinking of coming, it's important to like spend some time really deciding how you want your life to look here. I mean, are you planning a full-time move? In which case, probably the kinds of properties that we would look at would be different than if you're just going to be here a couple of weeks a year and you're going to rent it out the other time and you really want to maximize your rental income. Are you going to be a snowbird? Are you going to only be here, you know, off and on throughout the year, small amounts? So it's important to like think about that and also plan. You know, many people end up buying something kind of smaller because they're not sure they want to retire here full time, but they want to get in the market and have, you know, have a property here because prices are going up. So I've had several clients do that. They'll buy kind of a starter property, and then when they decide, yes, this is the place where we want to spend most of our time, then they'll either sell that and get another one or keep that as a rental and invest in something bigger. But it's good for you to be clear before we go shopping how you want to use it, so you're less likely to fall in love with something that really doesn't match what your real plan for your life is. You know, I'll use an example. Our good friends, Donna and Gary, I'm allowed to give this example, by the way. So they rented in Puerto Morelos for many years at Via Silvia. I don't know if you guys know that, but it's like on Niños Arrow is pretty close to the square. Well, actually it's down by Unico, kind of. But anyway, they were like, they only wanted to look in the village. We only want to look in the village, and their budget allowed them to look at condos. And we found one that was in their price range, and they were like, I guess we'll get that one because we can't find anything else. And we were like sitting down to write the offer, and I said, please come with me to look at this gated community, which they were pretty new then, so it was a harder sell. I was like, don't make this offer. You're not that excited about it. And I know when people are excited, you can kind of feel it when people are really jazzed about a property. And we went to a gated community. We found a new build home for them, 3-bed, 3-bath with a pool, which was fabulous, and $100,000 less than they were going to spend on a condo that they didn't really like. And we're only getting it because they were so committed to, I got to be right in town. I want to walk everywhere. I don't want to have a car. So with $100,000 extra dollars, they got a car, obviously, you know, and they got to finish it the way they wanted, and they had money left over, and they're really happy they made that choice. So there are, I mean, I just encourage you not to get blinders on to one particular type of property, I guess is what I'm trying to say there. the other, and I guess part of that story is I realized after knowing them longer that her husband would have been miserable in a condo. He's like a Mr. Fix-It guy. And they were moving here full time. Like he would have gone crazy. So I'm so glad they didn't make that $300,000 mistake and ended up, going to a home where he could do his thing and they enjoyed their life and they're in the beach whenever they want to be at the beach and they're, out of the hustle and bustle and sound of the noise of Puerto Morelos. I mean, when you're here on vacation, it's maybe not so bad, if the bar next door is playing till 4 a.m, but if you live here full time, that's a little more annoying, So those are just some things to think about. And I guess tied up in this is also this whole, are you bringing your pets? Many people would not consider a move without their pets, and in fact want to bring their pets anytime they come, even if it's only for a week or two. And that's going to change what you're going to look at, because many complexes won't allow you to have pets, even as owners. There's very few condo complexes that allow you to have dogs at this point. So that changes your whole thinking as well, right? If you know you want to have your dog here and you want to have some space for the dog, you're probably going to need to look at a home, either in one of the gated communities or in the colonia. Any questions about that, you guys? Same exclusion with cats? Yes, most of them say no pets. I think I feels like it should be different with cats, but I mean, I guess if you found a place, we could ask them if they would make an exception, but it's usually no pets at all. Sometimes people come in and they have a real, oh, David says, is it unusual to own multiple properties? Not, I mean, I know several people that own multiple properties. Usually it's the people who did what I described earlier, where you come in and buy something maybe smaller because you're only going to use it a few weeks a year and you want the rental income and you want to get in the market. Then they decide, oh, we want to live here more and we don't love this little place, and now we're going to buy another one, but we're keeping the little one to rent, or they sell the other one. But that's the place that I've seen that happen. I will say that I know several people who, when they started opening up the gated communities in the colonia, there were some investors in town who went in and bought up 4 or 5 of those little houses, and they used them for rentals. So that I've seen that happen as well. Many people did that in the gated communities along the highway when they released the lots, and went in and bought a bunch of lots, never intending to build on them, but just for investment purposes, and then they're selling them off. So yeah, it's not that unusual. Okay, so there's the pet issue, and then some people come in and they're like, I could never live in a condo. I only want a single family home, or the opposite. I don't want a single family home because I don't want to take care of it. And I don't want to mess with the pool. I just want my life to be easy. And all those things are valid. And I would really think about all those things. The one thing that I would say to you is that if you're not going to live here full time, you're going to pay someone to take care of your house. So whether you're paying a condo fee and they're taking care of it, or you're paying a property manager and you're going to pay someone. So I would that part's kind of a wash. I wouldn't lean one way or the other because of the cost of an association fee, because either way you're going to pay someone, because you're not going to leave your house empty with no one watching it and no one, cutting back the jungle from taking over your house. And some people their objection to condos is they don't think they're private. But if you look at any of these gated communities and in the colonia and even in beachfront homes, everyone's building right up to your property line, basically. There's very little privacy, even if you have $1 million house on the beach. So if you have to have privacy, maybe you gotta look in the jungle or something at those giant lots. And many of the condos actually have private balconies and have some private outdoor space. So I wouldn't rule out a condo without maybe looking at them if there's some in your price range. don't decide ahead of time that it's not going to offer you what you want, because it might offer you what you want. Outdoor space is a big issue, especially, you know, if you have a dog, I'm sure that's something you're concerned about, but it's weird, like they don't really have yards here. I mean, in those gated communities along the highway where they're building their very small lots, and they're usually building on almost all of them with kind of a teeny tiny little dipping pool in the back, you don't really have a yard. So if you're lucky enough to have a yard, that's amazing, but mostly you'll be taking your dog out, right? There's not a ton of outdoor space in any of these properties. So you're gonna be walking your dog, going on the beach. Technically, I think it's illegal, but people have dogs on the beach all the time. So I don't know what to say about that. But anyway, so I don't know, the condo versus home thing is, I would encourage you to keep your mind open to whatever's in your price range, whether it's a condo or a house, and then just go look at it. Because you might be surprised at what you fall in love with. Okay. Any chats, any questions on that? One thing that people often do, especially if they're, well, most people, I see this over and over, people will come down and they'll be saying like, well, I have 3 kids and 6 grandkids, and so I need a house big enough for everybody. And I say to you at that's awesome, but why, you know, are you going to spend that much money on it to maintain and buy and maintain a huge home when, you know, it will only be like the nirvana, the sun, moon, and stars all line up once every how many years when everyone can come at the same time. So I think it's important to be realistic about that. Like, how much space do you really need to live in, and how much do you want to pay to maintain? And is it possible that when your grandkids come, you can rent a condo near you, or rent another house? Or, I mean, there's ways around having everyone in your home that don't require you to spend a fortune buying a giant house that is mostly going to be occupied by 2 people. You know, because the reality is everyone has their own lives, and it's hard to get everyone here at the same time. And, you know, it'd be great if it happens, but more often than not, it's probably just going to be the main family there. So, all right. The other thing to think about kind of ahead of time is how, you know, do you want rental income? If you want rental income, you'll probably, you know, and you want to maximize it, then maybe it's worth spending the money to buy something in the seaside village that you can rent out for more money. Although I have to say, which I think many of you probably know at this point, that kind of all of Puerto Morelos has become a great rental market. So there's a million Airbnbs in the colonia. All the gated communities people are renting their homes and doing it quite successfully. So, you know, kind of the thinking was, if you weren't in the seaside village, you wouldn't get rentals, but that's all changed. But certainly you get more money for your rental. You can charge more on the beach or close to the beach, and within walking distance, people don't have to rent a car. So if you want to maximize that rental income, that's probably a way to do it, by being close. Oh, David says, what type of property is more rentable, condo or house? They're both rental. I mean, they're all rentable. You know, for a time, people were like, oh, no one's going to rent a 1-bedroom condo. Then they built 1-bedroom condos, and first of all, they sold right away, and they're rented all the time. So people are renting 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, they're renting houses. They're renting the little apartments in the colonia that are teeny tiny, 2-bedroom, 1-bath. You can charge more for a house, especially if you have a big house with a pool, then you can charge more for that. But they're all rentable. Any questions about that? Come on, you guys. Let's chat. Let me get my glasses on.
Kim, do we need to type our questions or can I ask one?
No, we can chat. There's not too many people. Go ahead.
Okay, because I'm on my phone and I can't really type very good on there.
Okay.
So in gated communities or communities that have an HOA, you know, I'm used to HOAs here and we enforce deed restrictions and things like that. Is it kind of the same there? Do they have an organization that monitors and makes sure you're keeping your property up and that kind of thing?
1 minute.
Yeah. Drink, Kim.
So, yeah, in the gated communities, they do have associations that are organized. And they do have requirements for how the houses have to look in terms of how you can paint them and the design that you can use. It all has to be approved. And if you do something non-complying, they fine you. But I'm not sure how much teeth they have to really do anything else. If you're not paying, I'm not sure how they can come after you. They can try to like lock you out of the community, I suppose, but it doesn't seem like it's taken as seriously as it is certainly in the US. So that's all I can tell you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's much less expensive, I will tell you that. In those gated communities,
Yeah.
like Regatta and Punta Vista, Punta Reina, Aldea, they're all like $50 a month. They're not very much. And that includes, in many cases, that includes your water as well. And it's round the clock security and, you know, association management, and then they take care of the pool and all that. And it's very nice. It's not very expensive, but I'm not sure that they're, you know, people are as willing to comply with the rules as they are in other places. I mean, I know like there's one home in Punta Reina where they've done a non-complying color, and I guess they're getting fined every month, but the owners didn't even know about it. So I'm like, how are you notifying the owners? So I don't know. It seems different to me. Yeah. I mean, you couldn't, if you tried to sell your property and you still owed association fees, you couldn't sell it because we have to have them give you a certificate of no liens and they won't do it. So of course you have to pay before you sell. But in between, I don't know how they're getting money out of people if they don't want to pay. Karen says, how long on average does it take a property to sell? Well, so we're an all cash, primarily second home market where our high season is typically only December to April. So it can take years for property to sell. And historically, that is what happened. It certainly depends on the price point as well. But now, things are moving much quicker. We don't have enough inventory in Puerto Morelos. So depending on where it is and what the price point is, we've sold them before we got them listed. We've sold them within days of listing. You know, it really depends on the property itself. I guess one thing to, you know, people always ask me when they're looking at property, how long has that been on the market? And I always tell them that's not a helpful metric here because there's no mortgage pressure. A time on the market does not indicate the seller's more willing to negotiate. It doesn't indicate there's a problem with the property. It doesn't indicate the price is bad. It just hasn't been sold. So it doesn't, like, knowing that doesn't give you any, like, oh, it's been on the market for 2 years and now they're going to be more willing to sell. It doesn't really give you any insight into the seller's state of mind or issues with the property. So it's not really a helpful thing to know. I mean, if you've been on our other discussions, and we'll do another one next week, the kind of sad thing is that there's no comparable sales information here. It's all private. There's no MLS, and so sellers, and there's no mortgage lenders who kind of control how much you can charge for your property because they have it appraised and they say, here's how much we'll loan you on that property. So they're kind of controlling the market. Here we don't have that. So really a seller can just put whatever price they want on it and they'll just wait till they get it. I mean, whether you think it's worth that or not, whether I tell them, look at all these sales that I have, compare what I think are comparable to you. Every seller believes their property is unique, and every seller will decide how much they want to sell it for. They often get more agreeable when you present a reasonable offer, but there's really no guarantee. So it's, in that way, it's a little bit of a crapshoot. They decide how much they want, and they'll wait till they get it in many cases. So we had kind of a rush of people, which I'm sure you guys, I mean, we predicted it when COVID happened and everything shut down. There was all this chitter chatter online and, oh, the prices are going to drop, da da da. Wait, don't buy anything now because the prices are dropping. Well, I mean, I told them they were wrong then, and they were really wrong, because not only are they not dropping, they're going up because everybody wants to be here now, and there's hardly any inventory. And although there was a shutdown, we were already heading into our low season anyway, and so sellers didn't feel, I mean, they didn't get to July or August thinking, oh God, I'm freaking out and I gotta lower my price. We were already really out of the high season. So they were like, well, we'll just wait till next year. I mean, and if we had gotten to this time of year and things hadn't started selling again, then maybe you would see some softening, but the opposite has happened. Our market is on fire. So, that just goes back to, in a sense, how valuable your investment is and how stable your investment is here versus it's kind of hard to get into the market. Did I answer that question? I feel like I went rambling on there. Anything else, guys? All right, so we've covered the pets, we've covered the how much space you need. One thing that, buyers often, or people often ask me when they're thinking of coming here is, do you think we should rent before we buy? And I'd love to hear you guys' opinion on this, because I do think it's interesting to me how it works, because some buyers are certainly much more cautious and they come and they rent for a while. I know, like Shannon and Glenn have done that. David, you're here quite a bit. So, I mean, a lot of people do that, and they come rent, they make sure, that they like it, and they explore different areas and see where they feel comfortable. And other people buy on their first time ever in town and move their whole life here, and they're perfectly happy. So I can't give you any advice on that. I will say that long-term rentals are hard to find here. And so if you want to come and rent long-term before you buy, you really need to start that process pretty far in advance to get something lined up especially if you want to be here over a high season, which many people do. So even now, even with COVID, people were scrambling who waited, because we didn't know if we could travel. So even then, it was hard to find rentals this year for longer term. So I would say that you need to start that kind of early.
Kim, I would recommend anybody to come and rent, or at least come and stay in any of those gated communities before buying. We've rented in a couple gated communities. Some of them are in the colonia, some of them are close to the highway. They may not like the accessibility to closer to the beach, closer to the grocery stores where you could be walking, biking, stuff like that. So I would definitely recommend coming and staying first before, get your feel for the colonia side, beach side, and so forth.
Yeah.
And a lot of these gated communities, you were talking about pets, a lot of these gated communities do have lots of green spaces in them too. So when you're walking their dog, it's not just on pavement. Yeah. There's lots of parks, lots of green spaces where they can go.
That's true.
Because a lot of these yards are very tiny. They might be big enough for them to just go out and have a quick little number out the back or whatever, but you're obviously going to want to walk them. There's lots of green spaces.
Yeah. And in fact, there is a beach club that allows dogs here. I can't think of it. The name of it? The one over by Impecton Beach. The beach club that allows dogs. I'm gonna forget the name of it. No. Okay, I'll look it up. But there is one where they're specifically allowed, so you wouldn't be running the risk of people chasing you off the beach, which they sometimes do when you take your dog to the beach. David says we've never been unhappy regardless where we stayed, Colonia or village. Yeah, that is part of the dilemma. Karen says, can you give me the names of some gated communities? Do you recommend that over living? So no, I mean, it's funny, Karen. I think the gated community idea appeals to a lot of Americans and Canadians, especially if you're not going to be here full time, because there is some security there and people feel a little more comfortable with that. But some people say, I would never live in a gated community. I want to be out in a real neighborhood. Well, a couple things. One is that the gated communities are not like all Americans or all Canadians. There's a great mix of, it's very international. There's, Mexican families. This is the Florida of Mexico. So a lot of Mexican families have their vacation homes here. And a lot of Mexican families live in Puerto Morelos and work in different areas, and they have homes in those communities as well. Or they work here. I mean, so I mean, it's really your personal preference. I don't think one is better than the other. I don't think one is even necessarily safer than the other, because I think Puerto Morelos itself is very safe. There's not like an area that I would say don't go there. That's not to say there's no crime, because there certainly is, and especially in high season, and I think especially in times like these where there's a lot of people are out of work, and I think that's gives rise to more crime. But I don't know, someone have a comment about that? Inside a gated community versus outside? No? Okay. We don't live in one, but we would like to. We think that's nice. I mean, we think it's nice.
Kim, we've lived in both sides, and it doesn't
Yeah.
really matter to either of us.
Yeah. I like them because so when I say gated community, there's a bunch. There's Punta Reina, Regata, Punta Vista. What am I forgetting? Aldea Keen, Aldea Khan, Aldea Ha. Those are Aldea That's all on the beach side of the highway. Across the highway, there's Palma Real, Barreras del Puerto. I think you guys lived in one, Glenn and Shannon. Alvarada.
Pomegranate.
Marino.
Okay.
Yeah, Puerto Marino. Yeah, we've lived in Puerto Marino. We've lived in Palma Real, and right now we're in Punta Arena. So,
okay.
Yeah. But I mean, we've also just lived in Villas La Playa, just like amongst everybody else. So yeah, we've definitely lived everywhere and done everything. The gated community isn't necessarily the best, like you said. We came here because we needed the size of the house, which is a huge thing, because you can get a bigger house in the gated community than you can get if you're going to live in like La Colonia.
Yeah. Well, also in the gated communities, they usually have a pool, which you won't get in a neighborhood. There's no public pools here. Yeah. So that's kind of a bummer if you have kids and you want to have a pool, or you want to have a pool. They do have them in the gated communities, but not in the other neighborhoods. So I guess that would be one reason you would consider that. Yeah, I mean, I think that's one good reason to come here and spend some time in the different areas. I mean, the other thing I like about the gated communities is they have buried all the electric lines, which is something you kind of take for granted. But then if you're in Puerto Morelos, there's a lot of I don't even know what you'd call it, like site pollution. There's just wires everywhere, and it's a very clean, and I think they're also very quiet compared to town. Town's amazing, and everyone wants to be right here, but it's loud. I mean, there's 100 dogs and chickens and trucks coming every 5 minutes selling something, and it's just everyone's blaring their music, so it's not a super quiet But it's fun, but it's not very quiet. What else, guys? Paul says, are you talking about Veredas del Puerto, Paul? I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah, I think that's cute. That's a nice place in the Colonia. They don't have many units there, which is what I like about it. It's very low density.
Hey, Kim, when we were there in December, we were driving around looking in the Colonia and we found El Faro, but then it looked like they were building something just beyond the main gate at El Faro. What is that?
That's called Selva Escondida.
Yeah.
It's more of the exact same thing. They're all the same. Your little 2-bedroom, 1-bath houses. And when you buy there, you're just getting the concrete. So you finish it.
Okay.
James says, what do you know about the new train coming through? Where will that be? Where is the train? Someone else may know this better. I know that they started clearing some space. It's in the Colonia. Oh, wait, or did they change it to the highway? I think they're moving it to the highway. No one actually really knows. I'm not the best person to ask about that. But it was either going to be like through one of the main avenues in the Colonia. And then they said, no, we're bringing it on the highway. We're going to expand the highway and it's going to go like down the middle of it. So I don't know where they're at right now. I'm sorry. I don't have a good answer to that question. I don't, yeah. We can check into it. What else, you guys?
Okay, Kim, I have a really weird question.
Hit me.
What happens if I buy a property in Mexico and I move there and I live there and then I die? How do my kids know how to sell a property if they're living here in the States? Is there an attorney you can work with to help you set stuff up like that? I mean, I'm kind of a planner.
Well, you're going to own your property in an asset trust, which is called a fideicomiso. And in that trust, you're going to name your beneficiaries. And also in the trust, it tells you what your beneficiaries need to do when you pass away so that they can get it in their names. And then you're going to tell them about your amazing real estate agent, Kim Temple. She's going to sell it for them.
Absolutely.
So you don't need to have like a will or anything in Mexico for real estate. Now, if you have some other property here, I mean, if you're going to live here, you're going to have other property. And if you want to have a will for that, like a car or, your other goods, if you think that there could be an issue, you could get a will in place here for that. But for the real estate, you're covered because the trust takes care of that. Yeah. What else?
Kim, I have a
Anyone?
question about short-term rental in the gated community. Is that hard to find? Like 1 or 2 weeks?
No, I would go on Airbnb. I think there's a ton of these properties are on Airbnb.
Okay.
So Airbnb is a safe bet to find something there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or VRBO.
VRBO.
I would have, until today, I would have said go on Friends of Puerto Morelos and ask, but they shut it down. I don't know if you guys saw that. Our
No.
biggest community group, they closed today. So now you got
Why?
Why?
Well, they've been managing it for 13 years. So I think part of it is they're just, there's 25,000 people in the group now. And it was becoming a kind of negative, I think. So they decided to take a break. They didn't completely get rid of it, but they archived it. So there's no action on it right now. You can still search it, which is great because there's good information there. But yeah, they announced it this morning. So we have a group which you're invited to join. It's called Puerto Morelos Life. We started it primarily for our clients and potential, people we've been in touch with to kind of get more information about real estate and things happening in town, just kind of current events and and that kind of stuff. It's not, there's no advertising allowed. So if you want to join that, just come on over to Puerto Morelos Life and answer the membership questions and we'll let you in. Then there's also True Friends and Expats of Puerto Morelos, which is another larger group. But yeah, but the big one's down. Dun, dun, dun. A little bit crazy. There's also a Puerto Morelos rental homes. Have you guys ever used that group? There is a Puerto Morelos rental home group that you can post what you're looking for in. I personally think it's maybe a little safer to do it on Airbnb or VRBO than just post something in a group and trust whoever responds. Oh, we got a dog running around.
Yes.
Oh, another 2 dogs. I see 2 dogs. That's cute. Hello.
You're a star, buddy.
Kim,
Uh-huh.
how do you join your Puerto Morelos live page? I don't see a join button.
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, you should be able to request to join it. If not, I'll send you an
There's a
invitation.
button, right?
It doesn't say at the top.
Oh, okay, no.
No. It just says a plus invite, but that's like if I would want to invite other people that I know.
Well, then you're already in it. I think you're already in the group.
Oh, okay, then I might be already in it. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
think you're already in the group.
Okay, thank you.
What other questions can I answer, you guys? What kind of things are you thinking about or worrying about? Dreaming about by chance?
If you buy property in Mexico, do you have to file any Mexican taxes? No, okay.
Nope.
You're a beginner.
Well, maybe I shouldn't say no.
Yeah,
There's,
you have to pay property taxes though.
you pay property taxes, but you don't pay income tax. You pay your
Income
property
tax.
Yeah. Mhm. So
Unless you Airbnb it, then yeah.
yeah, so the Airbnb thing is interesting, and I still don't have a clear answer on that because that was brought up in one of our previous sessions that the Mexican government is making noises about collecting tax off rental income. And they do have a hotel tax that Airbnb is now charging. It's, I think, 3%. But some people are saying, in addition to that, you are supposed to get a tax ID number and pay income tax in Mexico if you're generating rental income here, which I guess technically really does make sense. But realistically, I don't know how you go about doing that, especially if you don't have a residency visa, if you're, because you can buy property just on a tourist visa. And if you're not going to be here more than 6 months, you don't really need any other kind of visa. And so I don't have a clear answer on that yet. I can tell you right now that very few people are paying any kind of, well, they're not paying Mexican income taxes on rental income, and also very few people are reporting it in their own country either. So I think there's a chance that everyone's going to throw a net over that and try to get that tax revenue, but I'm not sure how that's going to look yet. But it's something that could come. And the way, I don't want to advise, okay. People have gotten around it by just dealing with people directly, getting paid directly instead of going through another platform. Anything else? Anything else you're thinking about? I guess one, people ask me about cars, whether you have to have a car living here. I don't, it's certainly more convenient with a car, but you don't necessarily need to have one. There's great public transportation here.
Up to you.
Is that a question? I don't know. All right. I've been through my stuff. Again, if you want to download the buyer guide, we didn't go through everything tonight, but it can be helpful, especially just to organize your thoughts as you're getting ready to come check things out. Anything else? No one wants to chat? This is it? Cheers.
Yeah, I just have one question about the COVID test getting back into the States. Is that still
Pretty easy.
pretty easy to do, or?
Yeah. Yes, I was sick last week and convinced that I had COVID. So I had 3 tests, and I can tell you it was pretty easy to get them. There's a quick test. Dr. Victor Ballesteros came to our house and gave me the quick test, the 15-minute test, which is funny. It's kind of like a pregnancy test. It's like 1 line is negative and 2 lines is positive. That's like the antigen test.
That's what we need.
And
Yeah.
then I also had a blood test, and the antigen test was nasal swab too, but then I had the PCR, the longer one that takes 30 hours. But all of them I called that day and had them that day.
Perfect.
So
Yeah,
I
good
do think, Costa Med has set up a new facility even, so you're not even going in the hospital. They've got another little building right next to the hospital that you go in, and they're doing quick testing there. You can get it at the airport on your way back. If you're going to the US, I think Canada requires the longer one, the PCR, which you can't get at the airport. So you would need to arrange for that in Puerto Morelos. And if there's several labs here, and honestly, if you can't get it here, go to Playa del Carmen for an afternoon, and there's many more labs there, or Cancun. So, but you should be able to get it here. I don't think you'll have any trouble.
Good to know. Thank you.
Especially the US is easier, going back to the US. When do you Canadians think this is gonna be over?
Well, I
Your
don't think we can
travel
fly
restriction.
until at least, yeah, we can't fly until the end of April anyway, so. Like WestJet and Air Transat has canceled all their flights till the end of April.
No.
That, Kim, is why I am here and she is there.
And Shannon is in Mexico.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw some post about that. Yeah, that's crazy.
So I'm a bachelor for 3 months.
And you're drinking coffee and not Palomas?
I gotta work.
I understand. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. I hope some of this was useful. I know that there's a lot to think about when you're thinking of coming, but I do think it benefits you to really think through a little more before you come in and start falling in love with properties that may not actually serve what your big goal is. So I know it's exciting and I know it's easy to fall in love with places, but if you keep in mind the life that you're imagining living, then I think it's better to do it that way.
A quick
Right,
question.
David? David has many, David can't decide. He has many lives he wants to live here.
Well, and there are 2 of us,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's hard to get everyone on the same page. Oh, wait.
Quick question, Kim.
Uh-huh.
I just noticed when I'm looking at all the designs and how the houses are set up, they all pretty much have the same, like the 2-bedroom, 1 bath. It's a lot of them, they don't put a lot of area into the living space, but they jam as many bedrooms as they can into places. Like I know it's like the townhomes, and some of them they'll have like 3 bedrooms, and they'll have 1 bedroom downstairs when you come in the door, and then like a small living space, a real small like kitchen area, like a real tiny kitchen, and maybe a little space for people. And then the second floor of like the townhouse will have like 3 bedrooms upstairs, and at the top of the stairs they got like a sitting area. Seems like, which is to me seems kind of useless. And I've looked at 2 or 3 places, and they all seem to follow that exact same kind of design. Is that primarily what you see in almost all the places down there, or is it very, very much, or?
Well, you've just described what all the townhomes are in Veritas del Puerto. I think Palma Real, they have 4 bedrooms, and I think those townhomes are bigger. Shannon's nodding her head. Yeah. They have bigger kitchens, bigger living rooms, bigger yards. So that's a different gated community in the Colonia. I haven't been in, so there are townhome style properties in like Quinta, or not Quinta Vereda. is it Puerto Moreno? Do they have bigger townhomes, like 4-bedroom? So there are some different layouts in the different gated communities. They're not all like Veritas del Puerto.
Yeah, I guess I was looking at something more close to like a 2-bedroom, like fewer bedrooms, because it's my wife and I, maybe we'll have guests, but like a greater living area if we're gonna live there more longer term, I guess is what, you know.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny that they don't build giant living rooms here for the most part. It's kind of hard to find. I'm not sure why.
I guess, yeah, more looking for something kind of like an open floor plan. You know, we're kind of used to all the houses here in the US where like, you got the kitchen that kind of opens up your dining room, then into like, you know, the living area, and you got the 2 little nooks for your bedrooms, and, you know, that's it. We've kind of, we
And
were
are you looking?
we were looking down Acapulco area too, at that Tower Resorts in there, and I kind of like the layouts of those, but I like the location in Puerto Morelos better. So I guess I'm trying to find kind of like a tower-like property, but in Puerto Morelos.
So what, like, how much are those? The
Oh,
tower ones?
well, they're roughly about 1,000 square feet for those. They're running, well, they sold at about 165 to 170,000, but you know, they got a gluttony there now, so the price can come down, but you're still at around 150 grand for those. And then of course they got
Okay.
like the 1-bedroom lofts, which are, you know, still unexorbitant. We're still looking at 140,000 for those. But they've got a glut down there, they're way over.
And yeah, so if in Palma Real, you can certainly find a bigger property for around between like 100 and 150,000. In the like, for example, right now in Regatta, there's this beautiful one with a wide open floor plan on the kitchen living area, and it's 192. Really beautiful. So there are some, but it is interesting to me that especially Mexican builders, if they're just building and they're not building for someone, they really don't place a lot of emphasis on the living space. It's and maybe it's just because the lots are small, I'm not sure, but they don't put big giant living areas in. It's kind of interesting. So, but they can be found if you tell us your budget, we can go and look around and see. Is there a car rental place in Puerto Morelos? Yes, there's several car rentals here. And Jim is asking, what is the best way to get to know other expats? So, and any of you who've been around here probably know David, Shannon, Glenn, you kind of can't get away with not meeting other expats if you come out of your house here. So there's, you know, beach cleanup groups, there's jungle cleanup groups, there's the dog rescue volunteers, there's the beach bocce ball people, there's the group that plays, what's that, pickleball, I don't even know what that is. There's book clubs, there's, you know, all the exercise groups, and really just going into a restaurant, you're going to meet people. So it's not hard to meet people here, I don't think. I mean, you guys chime in if you haven't had a different experience, but people are pretty friendly, and especially you kind of all have something in common if you live here, which is that you've done something that probably everyone thinks you're crazy to do. You know, everyone has an opinion on your decision to move to Mexico. So I don't know, I find that it's really easy to meet people and you know, go where your interests are. Do you want to go to an art class? Do you want to go to the book group? Do you want to play golf? You know, learn stand-up paddle boarding or go clean the beach. There's a lot of volunteer opportunities where you're going to meet people who are interested in the same things that you're interested in. Does that help? There's a lot of also, you know, we haven't done them this year because of COVID, but there's like the margarita contest, which is for charity. There's the chili cook-off, where a lot of the community comes. There's a lot of the expat community. There's Christmas dinners where we all get together, you know, as a group at a restaurant or at Casa Caribe. Sometimes Sonia and Marco will do these community just get-togethers. Thanksgiving, they do a big community dinner. So just take advantage of those opportunities to get out and meet people. But you're not going to have trouble meeting people here. Anyone else? Alrighty then. I hope this has been helpful, you guys. If you have any suggestions on what I can add, let me know. Next week, I think we're going to go back to talking about the actual buying process again. I think we have a lot of people who are asking about that, so we'll cover that again. And kind of dive a little deeper in how you find properties when you're looking for properties. It can be kind of difficult to find what's really on the market. We're going to talk about that next week. So that'll be fun. Anything else, guys? I think that's it for me. All right.
Thank you, Kim. Hope to see you next Monday.
At least today. Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Please stay warm. I wish everybody could be here.
Thanks, Kim.
Bye.
Thank you.
And
I got you.
Sonia, let me know if you have trouble, if you're not in the group.
Yeah, no, I think I am. Yeah, we're
Okay.
good. Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
good. All right.
you.
All right. Take care, you guys.
Bye.
Bye now.
Have a good week.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Cheers.